All right, good afternoon, everybody. Sorry, a little bit of a delay there getting us started. As we go through today's webinar, use the question and answer interface in Zoom to send in any questions you have. Depending on the question, I may answer it right then, or I may hold off until the end of today's presentation. So today we are talking about Nebula. This is our monthly sort of overview presentation where we'll go lightly into what Nebula is, why it's beneficial for you, some of the things you need to know about it. But we're not going to go super in depth. This should last maybe about 30 minutes. So we'll go ahead and get started here. So Nebula is a cloud management platform for Zyxel networking equipment. It is the first full stack cloud networking solution for SMB. So we launched this all the way back in 2016. And we've been constantly improving it since then. So it's not new. It's something that's been out there for a while. It's been tried and tested. So back when we first launched this, when it came to cloud networking, really the solutions out there were either focused on individual products, specifically mostly access points. And if you were looking for something that provided a more full support for more than just access points, you were pretty much just stuck with Cisco, Meraki, and maybe one or two others. And we looked at that, we saw the benefits of Cisco's Meraki solution, and we said, hey, that looks great. It'd be great for our partners who generally are not enterprise, more SMB, whereas Cisco Meraki was really targeting that enterprise space, and their pricing even up to today kind of, goes along with enterprise pricing. So this is our alternative to that to create a much more affordable and similar solution. So Nebula gives you a unified and centralized area to manage your customers' networks. There's one URL you go to, nebula.zyxel.com. You log in. All of your customers are there. All of their networks are there for you. There's nothing special that needs to go on site. There's no additional tools you need to buy, no cloud keys, no virtual machines that need to be set up and running. The agent is built into the hardware itself. You simply plug it in, give it an internet connection, and you're good to go. So it reduces the amount of time you've got to spend on site. And the Nebula platform itself is free. So Nebula gives you an unlimited number of customers you can manage and an unlimited number of devices you can manage in the cloud. I will get to a little bit later here, but we do offer some licensing options that unlock some additional features, but all of the core functionality that you would need is there in the free version of Nebula for you. So Nebula is made up of a couple different components. The main one that you're going to interface with here is the Nebula Control Center. That's that web-hosted interface where you're going to manage your customers, their networks, and all of their Zyxel devices that are on those networks. And we also have a mobile app. Now, the mobile app is basically there for two functions. One is for installers. It makes it easy for installers to quickly add new devices onto a network, or if they're needing to go on site to touch the hardware, maybe they need to replace something that fried in a power surge. You can use the Nebula app to help locate that device. We have the ability to put in floor plans and put the devices on those floor plans and some other tools in there for you. They also give you a sort of a high-level overview of what's going on your customers' networks. They allow you to configure some things, primarily wireless side, but for true management and configuration, you're going to want to use the web interface. It works great on PC and Mac. It works great on most tablets as well through a web browser. And then we've got all of our hardware here. So we support our security appliances, our switches, our access points. We've got a LTE mobile router that you can use that can be managed through the Nebula Cloud. And we're just now in the process of launching our SCR, a lightweight, license-free UTM security router that's primarily aimed at the small office or maybe the home office type users. So Nebula itself is designed to take everything that goes into setting up and installing a customer's network. We'll go ahead and go through all of these here, showing you, these are all the things you need to do when you're setting up a new network for one of your customers. And the idea behind Nebula is either to remove some of those things, and for those things where we can't remove them, to make it simpler so you're spending less time configuring devices, less time on your customer's site. And we'll go through this here a little bit more in depth. So as I mentioned before, Nebula is free. So we've got our Nebula base pack. It's the core version of Nebula, and it's always there for you. We do have some license options that unlock some additional features that are primarily aimed at MSP type features. And we'll go through some of them as we go through today's presentation. I'll touch on some of these differences between the different license packs. The main one that most of you end up buying, if you buy any at all, is our Pro Pack. That's been there since 2016. That's our top of the line pack. It gives you access to, a year's worth of logs in the cloud, audit logs, all sorts of stuff. And like I said, we'll go through that a little bit more. We've got a lightweight plus pack that's available for you. And then we also have this Nebula MSP pack. So the plus and the pro pack are licenses for the hardware at your customer site. The Nebula MSP license is for an admin user. So with the MSP pack license, you apply it to an admin account, and then any site, any customer that admin account touches gets access to certain features. And again, we'll go through them all a little bit more later. But now let's just start with some of the basics of Nebula here. So the idea behind Nebula is to make it really easy for you to deploy your networks. So step one, configuration on side of things. At any point here, even before you've signed the contract with your customer or finalized the hardware BOM, you can start setting up your customer's network. You can go in, set up the customer, start setting up their sites, and a lot of features there are going to be available for you to start configuring before you even get the hardware in hand. Once the hardware does come to you, you use the mobile app to scan the QR code that you can find either on the hardware itself or on the outside of the box and assign it to your customer. So once it's been assigned to your customer, it will know when it's plugged in that that's where it belongs and that's the configuration it needs. And then once you've added it in there, it'll unlock some additional configuration options for you. So for instance, on the AP side of things, at any point you can go in there and start setting up your SSIDs, what type of security they're using, encryption settings, captive portals, things like that. Once you've added the APs, then you can go in and set individual AP functions. So maybe you want to go in and manually set power output or channels to be used by each AP. So you can do that once you've added the hardware. And again, that QR code's on the outside of the box. So there's no need for you to take the hardware out of the box at this point. Now, when it comes to our security appliances, there's a couple extra steps. Obviously, your firewall is your key protection and the access gateway to your network remotely. So there's a couple extra steps that are involved there just to make sure you do have the hardware and you are the right person to be configuring that hardware. And then after that, you send the hardware on to your customer site. You plug it in. As soon as it has power and an internet connection, it will automatically reach out to the network. There's nothing else you need to do. There is nothing you need to configure directly on that device, with the one exception of if you're using fixed IP addresses. So if you're using a fixed IP address, you can log into the interface directly on the device to set that up. Our recommendation, use DHCP at the initial setup and then convert the devices over to fixed IP afterwards so you don't have to touch the device itself. And then from that point forward, you can manage your network through the cloud. So Nebula is made to get your networks up and running really quick. You simply log in, click that you want to create a new customer and network, and we've got a nice simple wizard that'll walk you through a couple steps to get things up and running, or at least the basics up and running immediately for you. As mentioned before, you can start configuring things before you take any device out of the box. So the Nebula Control Center here, this is your interface. This is what you're going to be seeing when you log in. So again, it gives you a unified single pane of glass for managing all of your Zyxel equipment, APs, switches, firewalls, etc. And it's allowing you to manage all of your customers that way. As we've talked about here, there's zero touch provisioning. There's nothing you need to configure on the hardware to make it talk to the cloud. We take care of that automatically for you. And Nebula has been built from day one to support you being able to easily manage multiple customers and multiple networks for each of those customers. So just kind of repeating here again, no manual configuration needed. Now, one thing we often get asked is, the customer's already got some hardware on their site. I'm only looking to replace a couple things with Nebula. Is that okay? And the answer to that is yes. So the agent is built into the individual device. So if your customer's already got switches and a firewall, and you're simply adding access points to the network or upgrading their wireless network from N to Wi-Fi 6E, You simply use Nebula to manage the APs. All the additional hardware you would manage the same way you've already been managing them. So it's not reliant on you having a full Zyxel Nebula implementation. Everything is independent, can be managed directly. So just giving you an idea, here is what the dashboard looks like once you've logged into one of your customer sites. So key thing here is we've got a number of widgets on here that show you what's going on that network. These widgets are customizable, so you can choose which widgets you want to see based on the type of information you want to know when you first log into your customer site. So you can see here, we're showing you, how things are set up, how many of each type of device is on the network, what your PoE power budget is versus your current utilization, how many users are on the wireless network. We can show you which applications are using your bandwidth and sort them by that. So a lot of good information to give you a sort of a top level overview. Up here at the top, we've got two drop-down menus. One is a list of your customers. One is a list of the sites for that customer. So you simply select your customer on one, it'll show you their sites, select your site, and it'll automatically jump you over to that other site. So it makes it really quick and simple to jump between customers or jump between sites that you're trying to manage. And then everything else you need is right over here on the left-hand side of the page. We've grouped things up together. So we've got a number of buttons here for helping you to monitor what's currently going on the network. So you can dig down into the switch or the firewall or the APs if you're trying to troubleshoot something. And then the same thing, a number of different buttons here to help you configure those devices that are on your network. So it's a very clean, simple interface. We are currently on what I would call our third major revision of the interface. We just rolled it out a couple months ago, or maybe it was just a month ago, month and a half. And we're constantly trying to improve and make things quicker, simpler, and easier to do. So this is an example here of the Nebula interface when it comes to setting up your SSID. So you can see here, you can automatically configure your SSIDs across the entire network. We've got the ability to turn them on and off. You can go in there and set up guest network. We've got an automatic toggle where you can just say this SSID is for guests, and it'll automatically set them up with smart VLAN features and isolate them from the rest of your network, so you don't have to manually do that yourselves. And then you can also use things like tags to specify these SSIDs are only to be used on certain access points, and you can easily all do that through this interface here. And then as you add additional APs to your network, they'll automatically get that configuration. So now we're taking a look sort of what you see here on the switch side of things. So you will notice here that we've got some buttons here saying Pro or Plus. So that's just letting you know these features do require that you have an active subscription to either Plus or Pro based on which sticker is there. Anything that says Plus is also included as Pro. If it says Pro, it requires Pro. So you can easily go through there and configure multiple ports on multiple switches simultaneously. With the free version of Nebula, we have our PoE schedule control, so you can set it so devices power off after hours to save money or for security reasons to keep people from hacking your wireless network in the middle of the night. With a Pro license here, we unlock advanced IGMP. So we have basic IGMP in there, and then we've got an advanced IGMP settings that unlock with Pro that are specifically aimed at the IPTV segment. So if you're deploying IPTV, it unlocks some additional features for you and unlocks some additional reporting to let you know what's going on that network and sort of give you a heads up before your customers start complaining if we see that there may be some issues with those IPTV streams. It unlocks advanced port bandwidth control, so we can do that. We've got the ability with Plus and Pro to do vendor ID based VLAN. So basically what you can do is you can have it automatically assign VLANs based on the MAC address of connected devices. And you do it, I forget off the top of my head how many, it's the first X number of digits of the MAC address. So that way, if you know, hey, we're using ShoreTel brand IP phones in our office, and all of them will start with the same, I think, first 6 digits of the MAC address. You simply type that in there, and then anytime you plug in one of those phones, it will automatically stick it on that VLAN for you. So it's a nice little tool to have there. But of course, you could always configure it manually with the free version of Nebula. We keep logs in the cloud there, so you can see what's currently going on your network as well as what's been going on the network. And then on our 1350 series of switches, those have some additional features there. Some additional monitoring and the ability to automatically reboot connected devices. So those unlock with the licenses. So here's the mobile app here for you, and we have the ability with the Plus and Pro license to have it automatically send you either push alerts through the app or email alerts, letting you know when stuff such as devices go offline. And you can set these rules for certain specific types of devices. So you know, hey, wait a minute, an AP just went offline at my customer's network. Let's get in there and get that fixed before these start complaining. Can let you know when licenses are going to expire, et cetera. So if you're using the Pro version of Nebula, we have a year's worth of logs stored in the cloud. In addition to your normal log type information, we also keep there for you a change log or an audit log. So if you're troubleshooting things, you can pull this up and find out, well, wait a minute, when did this configuration change take place? What was changed? What was the old value? What was the new value? So you can see, is this maybe what's causing it? Did something just get changed a day or two before your customer started complaining, or did this change take place 6 months ago? So it's probably not involved. We have what we call misconfigure protection. Again, this is part of the free version of Nebula. I'm sure any of you that have been doing VLANs for any amount of time have made that mistake where you set the VLAN on an intermediate device before it's ready, and you end up losing access to your other devices that need to be configured to use that VLAN. So we have the ability when you're doing things there to check and say, hey, wait a minute, you probably shouldn't be doing that. Check what you're doing. So it's just something else we've got in there to make sure devices don't accidentally get taken offline due to a misconfiguration. And you can schedule for more updates. So for more updates are done over the cloud, no need to go on site, and you can schedule them based on what's most convenient for your customers for those firmware updates to take place. If you're using the Plus or Pro version of Nebula, we have the ability to import in a sitemap and put the access points or your switches or whatever on that sitemap so you can see where the devices physically are. Makes it easier for you to troubleshoot if you ever have to send somebody on site. We also have the ability to create an automatic topology view. So we'll automatically map for you which devices are plugged into which other devices. Again, another great tool to have when you're troubleshooting thing. Which switch is this access point connected to? Which switch is that switch connected to? So you can easily trace back where you might be running into some of your problems. And we've got the ability to easily do some troubleshooting from the devices themselves, the ability to ping, to reset DHCP licenses, perform trace route, et cetera. So when you're using one of our paid licenses here for Nebula, we do also give you the ability to automatically schedule certain types of reports and have those emailed out. So that can be something that you send to yourself just to keep an eye on the network without needing to log in periodically. It may also be something you want to email to your customers to show them what's going on their network. Oh, let's go back here real quick. One thing I wanted to show here is on that report. It's not going to pull it up now. That's right. Hold on. Should be here. There we go. Okay, sorry, got myself confused there. We have the ability to add your logo to that email. So if you're emailing this to your customers, you can put your logo on there. So you can show them that you're proactively keeping an eye on what's going on their network. Okay, now moving on here to some of the other tools. Now these are things that come with ProPack here for you. So these are aimed more at your larger MSPs. So it gives you the ability to synchronize settings between different sites, the ability to clone switch settings and move them from one device to a different device, even a different device in a different site under that same customer, the ability to back up and restore your configuration so you can easily do versioning and fall back to a previous configuration if something's going wrong. We also have the ability to use configuration templates, so you can just change things on that template and have them automatically pushed out to multiple sites. So if you have the MSP license, again, that's a license that you could add to a admin account. It unlocks some additional features here for you. So it makes it really easy. It gives you a nice, what we call an MSP view, which gives you a view of what's going on onto your, maybe it's on the next slide here. The animation's not working right is what's going on here. So it gives you the ability here to be able to see what's going on in each of your customers at a quick glance. If you pull into that customer, it makes it easy for you to see what their license status is. Do they have any devices that are about to expire some point? It also tracks your security licenses. So if you're using UTM services on your firewall gateway, if you're using some of the other licenses that go along with security products, you can see what the status of those is very easily and easily be able to order any new licenses that you need. And it gives you the ability to rebrand the Nebula interface with your logo. So if you're allowing your customers or maybe their IT guy to log into the network and do some of their own maintenance, or maybe just allowing them to keep an eye on things, you can rebrand that interface with your information. We can also update the support contact information. So instead of having Zyxel support information, you can add your support information. So your customers aren't contacting us, they're contacting you. And we also give you the ability to manage your admins a lot easier. So we give you a lot of admin accounts. With ProPack, you've got an unlimited number of admin accounts, and you've got the ability to granularly control different levels of access that they may have to your customers or to certain specific customers. So to make that easier with the MSP license, you have the ability to create teams to basically group different admins together and then be able to control their access as a team instead of needing to do it on an individual basis. And you've got the ability to synchronize certain settings between different customers. So if you've got some default settings that you like that you always apply to your customer sites, you can use this to quickly and easily push those out to any new sites that you set up or any sites that you take over that somebody else was managing before. We also have the ability to automatically get email alerts when devices go offline for every site you manage. Now, normally that feature requires you have a Plus or Pro pack on that customer. But if you have the MSP license, you can do this with all your customers, even those using the free version of Nebula. So now I'll go through some of the things that are the same and some of the things that are different between these different levels of licensing, free, Plus, and Pro. So all of them here give you unlimited device management, unlimited customer management, access to things like monitoring, our dashboard with those widgets, the ability to put your customers on a Google map, basic floor plan visuals there for you. So that's available in all three of those. That zero touch deployment, where the devices automatically reach out to the cloud, that's included in all versions here. The ability to update firmware from the cloud and schedule firmware updates, that applies across all versions here. Access to our mobile app, all versions here. So now one of the first ones we're going to hit where there are some differences here have to do with the logging. So we will store the logs in the cloud for you. The free version of Nebula only stores 24 hours of log information in the cloud. Now, we do offer syslog export, so you can always set up your own syslog server and store an unlimited amount of your logs offline. But if you want us to store it in the cloud, the free version only stores 24 hours. More is stored in the cloud on the back end. So if for some reason you need to get our engineers involved to troubleshoot an issue, they do have access to more than just 24 hours. If you upgrade to the Plus pack, it gets you a week's worth of logs stored in the cloud, and then Pro Pack gets you a year's worth of logs stored in the cloud. Another area here where they differ is on the number of admin accounts. So this is admin accounts per customer that you are managing. So with the free version of Nebula, you get 5 admin accounts per customer. Plus Pack gets you 8 admin accounts per customer, and then Pro Pack gives you an unlimited number of accounts there. Another area where there's some differences here has to do with our cloud authentication server. So if you want to use our cloud server to provide authentication for a captive portal, for MAC filtering, for doing 802.1x, the free version of Nebula gives you 50 entries in that database. Plus Pack gets you 100 entries, and Pro Pack gives you an unlimited number of entries. And again, that's per customer that you are managing. And of course, we do still support for most of the features, standard radius server for authentication. So if you don't want to use our cloud, you can always use your own syslog server to do most of that. Scheduling certain network functions, firewall rules, PoE rules, things like that. That's available on the free version as well as the paid. Mac-based and 802.1x authentication. It's available on all versions. Captive portal is available on all versions. And now we'll start talking about some of the differences here. So going forward, these are only available in the Plus and Pro pack. Advanced firmware scheduling. So this lets you set up different firmware schedules based on the class of device. So you can say do APs at this time, do firewalls at this time, or the ability to set up individual schedules for individual devices. That does require a Plus or Pro pack. Advanced reporting, being able to generate those reports we talked about earlier, that requires Plus and Pro pack. That automatic topology view I showed you, that requires one of those licenses. Emails require those licenses. So Wi-Fi vouchers. So Wi-Fi vouchers is something that requires a license. Very few people actually use this feature, but it's more for when you're trying to provide a commercial hotspot where you're charging users to get them onto a public hotspot. Those are we have an implementation called vouchers, so that requires a Plus or Pro pack license. Some of the advanced switch features, particularly those found on the 1350 series, require a license. And then everything from here on is going to be Pro pack only. Those audit logs I was talking about, that's Pro pack only. Access to the organization or customer-wide configuration sync cloning templates, that requires Pro pack. Configuration backup and restore. Priority Nebula support, the ability to open a ticket directly with our team in Taiwan, that's part of the Pro pack. Access to our open API, so you can integrate with some existing equipment that you have or existing software you want to build. That requires Pro pack. Some of the advanced Wi-Fi troubleshooting features, in particular, are AI Wi-Fi troubleshooting, that requires a Pro pack. Some of the advanced AAA features in wireless, that requires Pro pack. If you're using the switches and you want to do static routing, that requires the Pro pack. So those are most of the main ones there. I'm sure most of you have fallen asleep as I go through all of those. So again, we've also got that MSP license, which is done on a pro or a per admin account basis. I won't go through those since we already had a slide talking about those. So when you look at our hardware and you're looking for Nebula, you say, hey, I want to try this out. What you want to take a look at here is our Nebula Flex products. So that's what you'll look at on the data sheet or on our price list, is the term Nebula Flex. So unlike Meraki and some of the other guys out there, we don't have hardware that's only cloud managed. We give you the flexibility. So anything that's Nebula Flex can be managed with the Nebula Cloud, or can be managed your traditional way where you log into a web GUI or use a command line or SNMP to do the management. So you've got that flexibility to choose when you want to manage it in the cloud for certain customers, or maybe not do it for certain other customers who don't like the cloud for whatever reason. You have the abilities to do that. And at any point, you can switch over from standalone to cloud or back. However, the configurations are different between the two modes, so they don't carry back and forth between the two modes. You'll also see some products labeled as Nebula Flex Pro. For the most part, that just means that hardware includes a 1-year Pro Pack license automatically out of the box. In the case of our access points, it also means that that AP could be managed through a local controller. So even if you're not using the cloud and you want to use a local controller, you do need to buy a Nebula Flex Pro AP to do that. So getting your devices in the cloud is really simple. Again, you just scan using that mobile app, your QR code on the bottom of the device or on the box, and assign it to your customer in their site. And once you do that, within a few minutes, the device will detect that you now want to manage it in the cloud. It will automatically convert into cloud mode and download the configuration associated with that site. And if at any point you want to move a device out of the cloud and make it a standalone device again, it's the same thing, just in reverse. Simply go into the Nebula Cloud, choose to remove that device from the cloud, and after a few minutes, the device will reboot in standalone mode for you. So it's really easy to go back and forth. So this is showing you our lineup here. I'm not going to go through them all, but you can see here are the top rows. These are our Nebula Flex products here. So includes a large number of our access points, our 1930, 1920, and 1915 series switches. and our new SCR security gateway. And then on the pro side of things, it's all of our switches that are 3 digits or more that start with access points that start with 5 or 6. So WAX510D and WA5123AC, et cetera. On the switch side of things, it is our 1350 series of switches, our 2220 series of switches, and the 3800 switches. And then all of our firewall products here are our main ones, the USG Flex and ATP. If you're buying the bundled version of the USG Flex, it includes the Nebula Pro Pack. If you're buying the standalone that doesn't include any of the UTM features, it does not come with a Pro Pack. And then all the ATPs come with a Pro Pack out of the box. And then we've also got our LTE 7461N Nebula managed 4G outdoor router. So a lot of people use that for remote locations or just as a failover in case something happens to the wired connection. So I just want to take a few seconds here to talk about how Nebula is architectured. So Nebula is hosted by Amazon AWS. You're one of the most reliable cloud hosting platforms out there, and we take care of all of that for you. We run that AWS instance. We maintain the software. There's nothing you need to do as far as that goes. You simply buy a Nebula compatible device, log in, and you're good to go. So because it's in the cloud, and again, it's the core base version is free, it's very easy to scale. There's nothing you need to worry about there. You don't have to worry about getting too many devices, needing to upgrade to a different plan, anything like that. It's all there for you. Again, Nebula Agent is built into our Nebula compatible hardware itself. So there's no cloud keys or virtual machines, CNA boxes, anything else that you need to buy, set up, or configure at your customer's site to be able to use our cloud platform to manage these customers and their hardware. One question we get asked about all the time has to do with user data. So none of your network traffic is passing through the Nebula cloud. The Nebula cloud is there for management and log storage and access. So we're not looking at, we're not able to see, capture, or do anything with anybody's data that's being sent over the network. Data that needs to go over the LAN stays on the LAN. Data that goes out to the WAN goes out to the WAN. It doesn't take a pit stop through our cloud first. So there's nothing there to worry about. We are, available in a number of different countries. We comply with GDPR and just about every country's privacy and security settings that are required there. Now, when it comes to communication between our Nebula compatible devices and the cloud, we did not create our own home-baked protocol to be able to handle that. We are using NetConf, which is an industry standard out there. So you don't have to worry that, we've got some sort of half-baked, home-built implementation. We are using NetConf to provide that security and make sure that information is encrypted and safe. And then just again, the free version of Nebula is always there for you. If at any point, if you're using Plus or Pro, you decide to let them lapse, it simply falls back into free mode. Or at any point, you can convert your device back into standalone mode. You don't get locked out just because you didn't renew a license. So lastly, the benefits of Nebula here, to keep it simple, it's very easy to start. It's very easy to scale and add up from there. There's a very low cost of investment. In fact, generally, it's going to be cheaper and easier to deploy with Nebula than to deploy the traditional way of doing things. You've always got remote access to your configuration of your devices at your customer's site. You've always got access to be able to troubleshoot and see what's going on. It's just easy to use, makes your life simpler. So that, guys, is the end of today's presentation. Again, if there's some questions, send them in using the question and answer interface. While we wait to see if any questions come in, just to highlight here, most of our webinars are recorded and we upload those to our YouTube page. So our YouTube page is called Zyxel America Channel. All one word. And the reason I point that out is because we're a global company and each different region has their own Zyxel branded site. So Zyxel America channel is here for North America. It's the webinars we put on. We've also got video case studies for you. We've got best practice videos, a number of things there for you. And then if you'd like to reach out to us on LinkedIn, we are Zyxel US channel there. And I am not seeing any questions coming in. So I'm going to go ahead and end today's webinar. If there is something that you you wanted to ask, you think of later, you can always reach out to your salesperson, or you can email me directly. My email is seanr@zyxel.com. There's many different ways to spell Sean. My way is SHAWN. So SHAWNR@zyxel.com. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and end today's webinar. I hope I see you on one of our next ones.